Today's lesson is on muscle tissue or muscular tissue. This is a very special tissue because this is the only tissue in your body that can contract and relax. And by this tissue, these tissues contracting and relaxing, these tissues bring about movement of the body. There are three types of tissues: the smooth muscle tissue, striated muscle tissue, and cardiac muscle tissue. What you see in front of you is smooth muscle tissue. Another name for the smooth muscle tissue is your unstriped or involuntary muscle tissue. Now, this tissue is involuntary. The involuntary means you have no control over this tissue. Your nervous system controls this tissue. Now, if you look at the cells, you can see the cells are spindle-shaped, meaning they taper towards the end. There's an oval nucleus, and there are muscle fibers here called myofibrils in the tissue. The cell membrane we call the sarcolemma, and the cytoplasm in the muscles we call sarcoplasm. Now, this tissue forms many layers, hence the spindle fiber appearance. If it's spindle fibered, you can have many of them tightly packed, and hence you can have layers of this tissue. This tissue is found in your digestive system from the esophagus to the anus. And you learned in grade 9 that peristalsis occurs, which is the wave-like contraction and relaxation of muscles. And it is this smooth muscle that contracts and relaxes and pushes the food along the alimentary canal. So one of the functions of the smooth muscle tissue is peristalsis in the digestive tract. You also find this tissue in your bladder. So as your bladder is filling up with urine, it is a smooth muscle tissue that has to be able to expand. In the walls of your blood vessels, your larger arteries, you also have a muscle tissue. Again, we learned that there's different volumes of blood. So to accommodate for the large amounts of blood and small amounts of blood, this tissue must be able to contract and relax in the arteries. And then in the uterus, when you're going to labor one day, it is the uterus, the muscles in the uterus that contract and relax and is responsible for the delivery of the baby. So that is your smooth muscle tissue. This tissue's functioning is involuntary, meaning we don't control this tissue. And these smooth muscles contract and relax very slowly, and their contraction is much longer. So that is the smooth muscle tissue. The next tissue that you have to learn is the striated or the voluntary muscle tissue. Again, from its name, voluntary muscle tissue, you can control this muscle. And every bone in your body that you can move is connected, has voluntary muscle tissue, so you can move the bones. Now, this is a cross-section through the skeletal muscle. The membrane on the outside is the epimysium. Each bundle that you see in here, that's a fasciculus, right? The membrane of the bundle is the perimysium. And in between the muscle fibers is the endomysium. And these small little circles, these are the muscle fibers. So here you have voluntary muscles, and you can contract the proteins actin and myosin and bring about movement of the muscles. So this tissue is found in any part of the body, any part of your skeleton that you can move. And this muscle is responsible for your movement of your limbs, your jaws. Your eyeballs also have skeletal muscle attached to it. And in between your ribs, you have intercostal muscles, and that muscle is voluntary muscle, and that helps with breathing. The last tissue that you're going to do now is the cardiac muscle tissue. And the cardiac muscle tissue, from its name, is found in the heart. Cardiac means heart. Now, if you look at the structure of this tissue, you can see the fibers are branched. The striations are less conspicuous, and they are oval nuclei. You have this stepwise little ladder that goes up and comes down. Those are intercalated discs. When we do the heart, we will learn more about the intercalated discs. But a muscle bridge is where two membranes fuse, where two cell membranes fuse. So if I have to draw that, that's where two cell membranes fuse, and that is a muscle bridge. An intercalated disc is a stepwise structure. It goes upwards and the step comes downwards. That's the intercalated disc. That's the structure. Now, this tissue is found in the heart. The striations you can see are less conspicuous, and the tissue is branched, and you have your intercalated disc. And you learned now what a muscle bridge is and what an intercalated disc is. So this tissue is responsible for the rhythmic beating of the heart. You will learn more about the intercalated discs later when we do the heart. And the beating of the heart is very rhythmic. It is continuous, meaning it happens all the time, and it is involuntary. There is a nervous system that controls the beating of the heart. So this is the structure of the cardiac muscle tissue. You will learn more about that when we do the heart. Now, the adaptations of the muscle tissue. All muscle tissue have lots of blood vessels. And in the blood vessels are a lot of oxygen and nutrients, oxygen and glucose. The more oxygen and glucose, the more cellular respiration, which will allow for the contraction and relaxation of these muscles. These muscles tissue have a lot of mitochondria, which provides the energy for the contraction and the relaxation. Another adaptation of the cardiac muscle tissue is the presence of the intercalated discs, but you will learn about the reason and the function of the intercalated discs when we do the heart. So all muscles are very red, have lots of blood vessels with glucose and oxygen, and have lots of mitochondria. The muscle tissue is one of the tissues in your body that have the most mitochondria. But between the other two muscle tissue, the cardiac muscle tissue has the most amount of blood vessels and mitochondria. Thank you.